We are Gold Ivy.
Our mission is to empower you to own and unleash your truth.
Stories of resiliency are gold, and ivy grows in hard places.
Those hard places are what creates space for light to shine through.
You decide what works for your daily life and how to transform our lessons into your gold.
This is Ivy Unleashed,
a Gold Ivy production. It's here. Our Move with Gold Ivy virtual workout platform is ready for you.
It's beautiful, it's easy to navigate, and it's absolutely packed with all kinds of workouts that will help you strengthen, trim, pump up, tone, energize, de-stress, all the things we want our body to feel. It's within Move.
Our dream has been to create accessible, affordable, and efficient workouts that you can do anytime and anywhere. But not only that, we have a weekly plan that you can follow so you don't have to think about it.
Everyone has been asking for a way to plan out their week and maximize their results, and we have the answer. Move with Gold Ivy. You can pick any workout you want at any time, but if you do want a plan that alternates muscle groups and leaves your body feeling energized and strong, we have the resources for you.
Speaking of resources, Move will also have a ton of them. We'll be adding all kinds of resources exclusive for Move members for your mental and physical health. We want you to get the most value out of our workout platform, and we will continually add kick-ass workouts, gut health information, physical challenges, and mental health resources that will leave you feeling ready to tackle life with energy and vitality like never before.
On top of the resources and virtual workouts, we will also be hosting live workouts.
So you're probably wondering about cost, and we're excited to share that for a limited time, only this month in January 2023, Move is free for a week and then only $10 a month.
And you can lock in this $10 a month founder rate right now to hold forever. We know the value of our workouts and resources are worth more, but wanted to honor and celebrate our biggest supporters in these first few months of launching Move.
So head on over to goldivyhealthco.com/move or find the link within the show notes of this episode and sign up today. This free week and monthly price, cheaper than any monthly membership you'll find, is going to end soon. So snag your spot and reap the benefits that you deserve to feel this year.
It's your time. Move for your health, move for your confidence, move for your mental clarity, move with Gold Ivy.
Welcome back to Ivy Unleashed. This is part 2 with podcast host, entrepreneur, and TEDx speaker Danny J. If you missed part 1, make sure you go back. Her life story in part 1 will absolutely stop you in your tracks. Danny J has persevered through the darkest times, and it's definitely worth a listen. Today, you'll hear about her experience with different healing modalities in detail, how she handles other people's judgment of her journey, and how she's began to trust herself after all the hardships she's faced. If you'd be so kind, please rate and review and or share this episode or any other episode that you found that's helpful. Your openness to helping us in this way makes a huge difference. Thank you for being here. And now to more with the one and only Danny J.
Just a real quick thing for anybody who's unaware. Ayahuasca is a plant medicine that is traditionally used in South America, Colombia, Costa Rica, these old traditions. And what people have been finding them for more and more now is to help treat PTSD, depression, a lot of mental health issues, addictions. And I first learned about it, I think, on a Tim Ferriss podcast in 2015. Was very curious, but I didn't know anybody who did anything like that. Don't know how to find it. So didn't do much digging into it. And then the story I shared with you earlier, 2018, I went to the mental health clinic. One of my friends reached out in the DMs and he said, "Hey, have you heard of ayahuasca?" And I said, "Actually, I have, but I, don't know much about it." So he connected me with a retreat where you do ayahuasca for 5 nights. And I was like, I'm going, I'm down. This was February 2019. Now I was on meds. So that was June 2018 or July, something like that. I was on meds through that whole time. But before you do it, you have to get off your medication. So like preparing, I go do this thing. Y'all, it was wild. I never done like drugs in my life. I had never done mushrooms. I never done like I drank alcohol, but that's as far as it goes. Like I'm not a big weed person or anything. So you drink, it's a drink. It's kind of like a cup of nasty molasses. And you drink it and then you go sit and you wait for the experience to hit you. Be a funny drunk, you might get tired, like, but there's a certain thing. With ayahuasca, one night you could drink it, have one experience. One night you drink it, you have a completely different experience. You don't know what the fuck you're getting. So, and people can see things. They can feel like they're an animal. They can feel like the gamut is like, it's a huge wild ride. So needless to say, I was terrified.
Did you know this going in?
I did, which made me so much more scared.
Why did you still decide to do it? Because you were like, something needs to change.
I was so desperate, and I had heard so many people get off their meds and that it had changed people's lives. And so I thought this would be so amazing if I didn't have to be on medication my whole life, and if I find that's worked for me. So I was ready to do it, but I was scared. I thought I was open, but probably not as open as I really could have been.
But you still
had a lot of skepticism. Yeah. I had a lot of skepticism too, because a lot of my friends who had done it are very like woo woo and a little bit out there. And I always say that I'm one woo, like I'm woo enough, but I got a lot of, I need there to be like proof and science and stuff too. I've had a lot of supernatural things happen to me, or things that just aren't explainable, or very, wild and crazy circumstances. So I can't dismiss those, but I'm also like, I don't think that we manifest everything and the universe is conspiring against us, or whatever. So I went in the first night, I drank the stuff, honestly didn't feel much of anything, but I'll tell you, people around me, they were on a ride, and I was just like, what the fuck did I get into? Like, this is weird as shit. I remember thinking, if somebody just walked in off the street, they would have been like, what is going on in this crazy cult room? There was people screaming, crying, throwing up. It's a purgative, so a lot of people do puke. So you go into this space and they have these buckets, and not everybody pukes, but there's a high chance. So you get a bucket. So that's also, I'm like, great. I'm so scared I'm going to throw up. I was nervous. Nothing happened the first night. However, this girl, she started screaming. She was like, get him off me, get him off me, get him off me. And I'm like, oh my God, someone's getting attacked. So I look around. I don't see anybody. I realize she's in her head having like a flashback, something that happened to her. And the next day I was messed up. I'm like, this stuff is not good for you. This is bringing up flashbacks. She just relived some trauma. That can't be good for her. And I'm like, I don't know if I could do this again, but we're supposed to do it again that night. We're supposed to do 5 nights in a row. And I was like, this is bullshit. So, by the way, I think I don't know if this is episode 55, but there's 2 hours of me sharing the whole story on the podcast. If you want to listen to it all, it's there. Next night, I was like, Jill decided, she opted out. She's like, nope, I'm not going back. I went back. She's like, sorry, I'm going to go to bed early. Have fun. I went this second night, terrified as shit. And about 2 hours into it, I had a really beautiful experience where basically I saw my own funeral, and I saw the people who loved and cared about me. And it was a really amazing experience. And then I heard the girl screaming again. She snapped me out of it. Like, I was kind of going in this like high, and then I was like sobered up as soon as I heard her screaming. This time she's screaming, get more details, that it was her dad and she was a baby, obviously being like sexually abused as a child. And I was like, Jesus, man, like this, like I just had a good experience. And then I was like, oh my God, this is messing her up. Third night, drank again, didn't have much experience, kind of just passed out. Fourth night, I had another really vivid piece. But what also happened was the girl started screaming again. And I was like, I can't do this. So I put my fingers in my ears. I'm like, fuck off. I cannot like let her ruin this. I put my fingers in my ears, and I heard this voice, not audibly, but in my head, I guess, that said, you cannot shut out other people's suffering. You can't hide from other people's suffering. And I was like, ugh. And then I also heard, she just needs to be heard. And I was like, oh, so I put my fingers out of my ears, and then she just stopped. And that was like a huge lesson for me of like, we can't like close our eyes to other people's suffering, and people do just need to be heard. So often people are just hurting and hurting. And I don't know what she needed. That was a lesson for me. But I know now one thing I took out of ayahuasca is I listen to people's stories. I know some people just need to tell someone, and they just need someone to hear that they've been through something too. And the last night I had a very beautiful experience that had to do with grieving and my daughter, giving her up for adoption. And you can listen to that on the episode. But it all wrapped up very beautifully. And also that girl, by the end, she shared with everyone how she had such a transformation and forgiveness. And so I think that it's a very powerful, powerful medicine. You need to be around people who can hold space for it. I just got back doing it with my boyfriend in Costa Rica, and I had a beautiful experience. Actually, the second night I laughed for 2 straight hours. I don't even know what the hell they put in that ayahuasca, but I was giggling, and it was the best I'd ever felt. But it's very powerful stuff. It's not anything you want to do like as a party drug. It's not, I would never, ever do it like just on my own. I think it's a very sacred medicine that needs to be done in the right set and setting. And you have to be prepared for what can come up, and you need to be around people who can help you process what comes up, because it can be really heavy shit. Like that girl, it can be really light, like my giggling night, but what comes out, I think, is what you need. And it really accesses a part of your brain and your subconscious that maybe you're not available for normally. But it's been super powerful for me in my healing. Same with psilocybin. It's funny, I did mushrooms after ayahuasca, but I really use those to help getting through processing my mom's the loss of my mom, and also figuring out stuff with work and identity. And I think and I recently did ketamine, out of curiosity. And I think there's amazing science. I've actually been digging really deep, like going down the rabbit hole of psychedelics and how they can help heal. And there's a lot of MDMA therapy, which is what some people call Molly, psilocybin, all of these things. There's a lot of things that are helpful. And I think it's really about like trying to see what works for you. I've had hypnotherapy, I've done EMDR therapy, I've done these kind of things. And each one of them didn't cure me from all the things, but they helped unlock another level or another layer of things that I was going through and working on. And what I've realized as I've done more and more is like, there's so many damn layers. I'm like, of course, probably obviously with all of the traumas, there's layers, but it's also made me more compassionate. It's also helped me recognize that what happens to me is not like who I am, or that's not my future. And these medicines have given me a different outlook and a way to process in ways that I couldn't normally. Some of it's been weird, and I think you have to be really open. I don't think you have to do it, but I think it's a tool. And right now it's not legal in the United States, although there are places you could do it in the United States. But if you want to find spots, you can always DM me and I could point you in a few directions that I know are safe at least.
I'm glad you mentioned safe, because I think that's what it's about, is in a controllable environment, right? That is, because if these feelings do come up, then having that safe place to go. So were there like counselors there that were able to help people after? What did that look like? You take this drug and then what? You have this trip and then what?
So at the first place I went to, there was a lot of people going around, just kind of like this. The second night I was bawling my brains out. I went outside and someone was there just to like comfort me, make sure I was good. There's I don't want to call them sitters, but they are very, very, this is what they do. Like they have seen everything you could see with people in the medicine. And then afterwards they call it integration. And so integration is like talking through what you saw, what came up for you, and really processing it. What we just did in Costa Rica this week, we actually did an integration call on Sunday, which was like, okay, now that you're home, how are you integrating what you just learned while you were there? Because you had a lot of insights and ahas, and how are you managing? And so really integration is a big part of it. And yes, at the first place I went, they had nurses and doctors on staff. I don't think they were quite necessary, but I think it's mostly for people to feel better. And I did feel better having them there. I thought the last place we went could have had that as just like for the people who are a little bit more like sciencey, like just make them feel better. But yeah, it's really about setting up a safe space. I think trusting people who've done this many, many, many times. I wouldn't ever do it as like a party drug. I wouldn't even do mushrooms. Like my boyfriend, he's like, oh, I'll go to a concert and take mushrooms. I won't. I will only do mushrooms as like a therapeutic. I do this when I need to process things. I'm not going to do it as just like a take it to feel good kind of thing. I just have a little bit more respect for it than that. And I think those kind of medicines can take you into a place you're not quite ready or wanting to go. So my very first psilocybin journey was one-on-one with a woman who just does it secretly out of her house. But this is literally her life's work, as she facilitates and just makes sure you're safe and make sure you're good. And then she was there to talk through what was coming up for me. And a lot of it is talking through it. And sometimes it could just be somebody sitting there with you, making sure you feel safe.
I have so many questions. Well, just like, and I'm just to be honest, like part of my nature is like judgment of like, oh, drugs, like these are drugs, you know? And like you said, like this isn't something you normally do. It's not like, you know, but it makes me think of, you know, we have a podcast, we talk about everything under the sun, and so do you. So I'm curious about just judgment in your life and how you've handled it with being so vulnerable with these things that you've experienced, with things that are typically taboo to talk about, like teen pregnancy and drugs and suicide and like a million things you talk about in your podcast. Like, how do you handle what people say or think? Like, how has that been kind of being in the public eye and handling that?
Yeah. I think when I share stories that are vulnerable, often we judge something when we have a preconceived idea of what it is. And so when I went to Costa Rica the first time, I came home. Jill was with me. We went to Vegas to see my parents, and my mom was like, I can't believe you went and did drugs. She was so mad at me. And I was raised Mormon, like they don't drink coffee, no sex before marriage, like very strict religion, right?
They don't drink coffee?
No.
Why?
No coffee. It's a
stimulant.
A whole lot. Yeah,
it's a drug.
I don't know. There's different ideas of why, but mainly because the prophet said no. So no drugs, no alcohol, no coffee, no tea.
No tea?
Yeah, no coffee or tea, except herbal tea. No black tea. So this is where I'm coming into, right? So my mom was very upset. I can't believe you did drugs. And I said, Mom, listen. And I told her the whole story, like the girl crying and what I came out with. And by the end of me telling her, she goes, I am so proud of you. I mean, 180 to where she was mad at me for doing drugs to saying she was so proud of me. And so I think that when we have this, because she had this preconceived idea, like I'm just going to the jungle to party and do drugs. It's like, whoa, let me tell you, it was not that at all. So we get this idea. And if we can, and same thing with, you know, I feel like back when people being quote like gay was so bad, but then you like had your first gay friend and you're going, and maybe this is just me because I was raised Mormon and like being gay was bad. But I remember my parents talking about that stuff. And I'm like, I met a gay person. I'm like, they're really nice. Oh, not everyone who's gay is bad. Or not, like even racism, like in the 20s and 30s, and like people hated black people, white people hated black people. And then they made a black person, they have a black friend. They're like, oh, they're not so bad. I think we just judge what we don't really know and understand. Mm-hmm. So how I've come across and kind of not been worried about the judgment is I share my true experience, and suddenly people look at it different. And they're like, oh, that's not exactly what I thought it was. Okay. Maybe it's not just drugs in the jungle. Maybe it's like suicide is, because some people really think suicide is selfish and the worst thing you could do. And it's like, actually, if you're in the mind of somebody who's suicidal, they think that they're saving you. They think they're being a burden and they don't want to weigh you down. Like probably most people who've killed themselves didn't do it to hurt their family, to be selfish. They thought they were helping their family by not being here anymore. And it's just a different way of thinking about it. So I think my sharing helps people like strip the judgment and go, oh, because this is the thing. Everyone judges, we all do. But they're looking at me and they're like, oh, seems smart. So now this doesn't work. This doesn't like fit my idea of like what this is and this is. Or she seems like pretty or good looking or something. Like they put me in this bucket and then they put this other stuff in the bucket. And now suddenly those two things don't connect. And now they have to like change their idea of what it is. Yeah. It's like a cognitive dissonance. Mm-hmm. So if they think, okay, people who do drugs look like this, and then Danny looks like this, and wait a second, she does drugs, like, now my brain is malfunctioning, and now I'm going to have to open up my paradigm of what I think this looks like. And I was raised in the DARE program and say no to drugs and like the whole drug era. So I had the same shit for myself. That's why I said the first time, I think I was not as open-minded. I just sat in the room, even judging it as I was doing it. I remember thinking, what the hell kind of person comes to one of these things? And I'm like, I'm here. It's me. I'm like, I was judging everybody in that room. I'm like, why are these people here? This is so weird. And I'm like, I'm here. This is so weird. Like, what are we doing here? So I think sharing it and taking off like what the ideas are and just getting real with like, yes, this part is true and this part is maybe not true, and letting people kind of sort that out. It helps.
Yeah. And I think what you do so beautifully is you have that real raw perspective of it too, of, you know, you're open about your experience and you humanize it of, yeah, I'm doing drugs, but you're also educating beautifully on how it works. You're getting at the subconscious. You're doing your research before you go into it. You're not doing it blindly. And so I think in a way, what you're really doing, and with podcasts too, is you're inviting people to look at things from a different lens of, you know, it doesn't have to be so black and white. Healing is this guy. And if you're not watching YouTube, it's a damn roller coaster. And some days you're like, I got this. I'm so grateful. And other days you're like, shit, I need something stronger to tap in and help me heal.
Yeah. And also, I don't believe that there's one way.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people who are like ayahuasca, they're like, it's going to change your life. It's like, they would tell me this before, it's going to change your life. You're going to be different. I'm like, yes, it did. And I still had shit to deal with and it didn't fix everything. And I got back on meds when I got back. Like, it didn't change everything radically for me. And for some people it does, like one ceremony, one journey, radically life-changing. For me, it's been multiple modalities, multiple things. And I've had breakthroughs and many, many parts, but I haven't had one thing in my life that's been so life-changing. It radically transformed everything for me. And that's me personally. Some people do. Breath work too, massively life-changing for people. I've done some really, really amazing deep healing sessions of breath work that were more powerful than a couple ayahuasca journeys. But again, it helped me through certain pieces, but not everything. I've never found like the one thing. And I know there's some people who do. They say, this is the one thing. And I'm like, for you, that was good for you. And for me, I'm like, try everything. Like hypnotherapy, that changed a lot for me. That was big. But then I needed it for other things and I tried and it wasn't working for the other things. I'm like, okay, nope, hypnotherapy doesn't work there. EMDR, great, worked massively with my divorce stuff. Some other shit didn't really help me for. So I'm like, try what works and keep trying and keep working through it. And maybe mushrooms, maybe going to Costa Rica to do ayahuasca is not going to work for your lifestyle or just not against your values or whatever. Go to breath work. It's very possible that breath work could get you to what you need from ayahuasca and you don't have to do any drugs. You just use your own breathing. So there's just so many things you can do. And I think it's important to know the options and also to not have an expectation of this is the one thing I need. And if I can't access it, then I'm screwed. Because I've had those thoughts too. Like when I was 15, I was supposed to go to an eating disorder clinic and I didn't go. And I remember thinking, well, now I'm ruined because I can't go to this one clinic and I can't be helped this way. And that's not true. Like, and ketamine is this new thing that they're really putting out. And I'm really digging into something that I'm excited about is kind of becoming a facilitator for psychedelic assisted therapies, whether it's psilocybin and ketamine and those kind of things. But ketamine clinics are popping up everywhere and it's to help people with depression. But I did ketamine and it does something for you, but I had higher expectations and I was like, oh, this wasn't like fixing my life overnight. And I think we have to also, it's also cost prohibitive for a lot of people. And I think if some people are like, I need to do ketamine, but I can't afford it, so I'm going to be screwed forever. Like, that's not true. Ketamine might not be the thing for you and you might spend the money and you still might need help. So also not having any expectations on one thing, quote, fixing you needs to be really important to know. And there are so many paths to get to healing. And oftentimes a combination of things is going to be what helps you get there.
I think knowing too that looks so different for everyone is empowering. Yeah. Right? Okay, they did this, this, and this, but I can't afford that. Well, that doesn't mean that I can't still heal. I can look at all of the free resources online. I can see what people like Danny J did that I could afford, or breath work. Like, there's so much. And for me, just that mindset was empowering of, you know, being curious and getting excited about it of what could I tap into? What could I try? So if you're listening right now and you are struggling, know that you're in such a beautiful place because we just talked about a million different things, and whatever sparked your curiosity, like, it sparked it for a reason. I think for me, using my intuition of, okay, what sounds like something I could try and being open to trying it is so powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's interesting too, that through your life's journey of healing, that you've taken your low lows and turned it into like a professional experience, whether you're a speaker, you're on a podcast, you're running these webinars. I think it's really cool how you've done that. And so I would love to just hear how you like talk yourself through that. Like, oh, I'm in a tough spot financially. And then you all of a sudden have these money mindset webinars. Like, how does that work for you to take what you're going through and actually turn it into a business?
Yeah. So the business, started off in fitness, and so I was a fitness competitor, super lean. I mean, like 6-pack abs year round. I did like a body fat analysis. I was like 9% body fat, didn't have a period. I mean, I was super, super lean, super strict with my food. And I did that for so long, it actually messed up my metabolism in my body. And I gained like 30 pounds in 2 months. And I was still doing all the quote right things. Like I'm eating literally less than 1,000 calories a day, doing 2 hours of exercise and gaining weight. And I was like, this makes no sense. I went to the doctor, and I remember when the doctors was like, you just need to eat less and exercise more. And I was like, fuck off. How am I going to do that? Like, how am I going to eat less than what I am? And so I went through this major like upheaval with my body, and I did not know what was going on. And I started to find that people in the fitness industry were going through some of the same things. A lot of these competitors, they just disappear. And I like message, and I find out that this is like a thing that's happening. And I was so upset about it. I'm like, nobody's talking about this. I kept looking for information. I was looking on YouTube, looking on social media. Nobody's talking about it. And I'm like, if nobody's going to talk about it, then I got to talk about it. So I opened up my laptop, used my little camera on my laptop thing, hit record, and I just started talking. And I basically was like, here's what's going on with me. I've gained all this weight. I don't know what to do. I was embarrassed to be seen. Like everybody had seen me in these pictures. I'm so lean. And I'm like, I'm going to share this. And I remember thinking, if I publish this, I'm going to be blackballed from the fitness industry. I'm going to lose credibility. No clients are going to hire me, and I'm done. But I'm like, I can't keep silent anymore. I hit publish to YouTube, slammed my laptop shut, went and cried in my room for like 2 hours. I was like, my life is over. My career is over. Like I'm done, whatever. Come back, open my laptop. I've got like 100 emails. All these girls like, oh my gosh, thank you for saying something. Oh my God, this is happening to me. Like more emails than I've ever gotten from any video in my life. Thank you for sharing this. And that was this piece. And I had this idea in my head. I'm like, if there's anything I ever don't want to talk about, that's the thing I have to share. And so a couple years later, struggling with finances, the economy crashed. My ex-husband and I, we lost our house. We had to move. He got a $30,000 a year job when he had made like $75,000 before. Like it was a whole thing. It was very embarrassing. And I remember, again, that popped in my head. Oh, you don't want to talk about it? Guess you got to talk about it. And I was like, damn it. Where did that come from? I don't know. That could be one of those things that's the universe telling me to do this stupid shit. There's something that's compelling me to talk about the things that I don't want to talk about, and I'm doing it anyway.
Didn't you go from like you got debt free in 69 days or something wild like that?
Yeah. So we moved. We were broke. I had student loan debt and credit card debt. We had $18,000 in debt. I was pretty sure we were broke every single month. We were. And I went to this workshop about getting out of debt, and I had to put it on my credit card. And I remember thinking, this is either the dumbest thing I've ever done or the smartest, but I'm going to a workshop about getting out of debt and putting it on my credit card because I couldn't afford to go. And I maxed out my credit card. I was like, I remember thinking, and it was only $400, but at the time that was everything. And I didn't tell my husband how much it cost. And I just remember thinking, I just got to get my $400 worth. Everything this lady says, I'm going to do it. And for a lot of it, probably the mindset I am now, I'd be like, okay, this is not new. This is old, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, I will do everything she says. One of the things she said was to give away 10% of your money. And I was like, Jesus, I don't have money to give away. But I was like, you said you were going to do everything, Danny. Like, fucking do it. I saw all these testimonials on her website. Everybody else was doing good. I'm like, I'm going to just do it. Like, I was at a point where I'm like, I don't have any other choice. I got to follow something. I got to do it. Literally 69 days after going to her thing, paid off $18,000 of debt. Mind you, my husband had a $30,000 a year salary. So we weren't bringing in a lot of money. And I had like some online money here and there. Like we were making a lot of money, but I sold some shit. I ended up creating a program. We were what I call as faithful with the little things. We became more faithful. I realized how much of my money was going to food that we didn't need to be doing. Like there were so many things that I was like, I thought were normal, and maybe they are normal, but they were not helping me get to my goals. It happened so rapidly. It didn't even make sense on paper that I could get out of $18,000 of debt in 69 days because the amount of money we were bringing in that math didn't fit. It would have been impossible. But the strategies we did and how we put it together, it happened. And I really think there's something to, if you start making little efforts and progress, somehow the universe is like, okay, we're going to help you out. We're going to hook it up. And radically shifted. And that was so big for me. I was like, I have to talk about this and share it with people. And I have to share the backstory first. And that kind of shifted me into talking a lot about money mindset and all of that. And the embarrassment and shame of like losing your money too, and your home and all of that. I mean, turning our car in, house foreclosed on, it was pretty humiliating. You know, I was turning 30 and I was thinking I should be moving into a bigger house. Instead, we're downsizing into a 1-bedroom apartment, like we're in college or something. And that experience now is so freeing for me because now I don't care. like I don't need a house. I'm 40 years old and I don't have a house. I don't need to own anything. And at some point, maybe I will, but it changed a lot of attachments for me, and shifting out of that and having my identity wrapped up in where I lived or what I drove was really big and maybe something that needed to be undone. But yeah, I think that was a huge thing for me, was following someone, doing everything they said. Like, I was like, people are getting results, I got to get the results. That was really my first mentor and person I really like followed. If I ever talk about mentorship, like that was somebody. And then sharing is just some piece that I don't know what it is, but I've been compelled. And there's been a part of me that said ever since 2013, like, if I don't want to talk about it, it's probably the thing I got to talk about. And I have to force myself. I don't always want to talk about stuff, but I know that every time I have, and it is just, I think now it's just been proven to me. I know without a doubt, if it's bugging me and I don't want to talk about it, I know those are the things that I'm going to get the most messages of people like DMing me. Thank you so much for saying this. I needed this. I didn't know that you were going through that too. I mean, the depression thing, when I posted about it, so many messages, the affairs, so many messages. So I know every time I share, it unlocks for other people just some permission or the not aloneness. But those are the hardest things to share. And every time they've been the ones that have made the biggest difference.
I love it.
So beautiful.
Yeah. And I just want to reiterate that the Best Life podcast has over 300 episodes, and all like, go listen to their podcast. There's room for us all. And I just love, Danny J, how you have just thrown yourself into everything personal development. Like, you've had rough patches in so many different directions, and you lean on your friendships, you talk about it, you're vulnerable, but then you don't stop until you find an answer. And then you're also sharing that. And so I'm just so thankful for the work you do. And I really want everybody to know where they can find you. So if people want to hear your podcast, follow you, where can they find you?
Yeah, definitely the podcast. If you're listening to podcasts now, you might be on YouTube. So hopefully we'll be on here soon. The Best Life Podcast. We did start the channel on all the podcast platforms, iTunes and Spotify. And then on Instagram, I'm there the most. It's DannyJ.com, DANNY, like a boy, and then just the letter J, and then you spell .com, DOTCOM. You could go to my website, DannyJ.com, and find me there as well. But mostly IG. You can always hit me up in the DMs.
Yes. And you're so great at responding and just being there, which I love. We hate to see you go, but we want to be mindful of your time. And we are so appreciative that you sat down with us virtually this evening. But I'm curious if you'd share with us your 3 gold stars. So these are your 3 takeaways for our listeners.
Yeah, my 3 gold stars. Well, the first one kind of came up in the gift, which is trust. I think a big piece is learning how to trust yourself. I think so often we're seeing gurus all around the internet and everybody seems to have the answer, but ultimately you're your own guru. And so learning how to trust yourself. The second piece is to know that you're enough. I think it's really, I see so much as we think we're not enough. We're not a good enough mom. We don't have enough resources. We don't have enough contacts, whatever it is. I used to have this mantra that is, I am enough, I have enough, and I trust myself. So those things can go so far. And I know I talked about affirmations, but if you want to take any affirmations, I would do that. And the last piece is just to know, I guess it kind of goes back to the first pieces, but the last piece is just to know that you have all the answers within you. And so if you ever feel like the answers outside of yourself or other people are telling you that, know that you can find them within yourself. And there's a path there. And oftentimes the path is inward instead of outward. And so being able to meditate or find that, but just know that you have it, it's there, you're enough, and that you can find the answers within yourself.
Love that. So beautiful. All right. Next up is Unleashing Ivy. 3 surprise questions you know nothing about, which I'm really excited to get into this. I just hearing your story, I just want to hear more from you about your teen pregnancy to the adoption process, and something that you said, I don't know if it was on your website or on a blog post or something, but you said, she made me who I am. I just feel like the whole experience is so powerful. So I'm just curious, she made you who you are. Like, what does that mean for me? Where does that come from?
I mean, I guess to understand that, you have to know what a dark, dark place I was in and how I did not want to be here. And so I feel like that experience of having her and then making the decision to stay here, meaning stay on this planet and not take myself out through suicide, was like the catalyst for everything. And part of that was, as well as I had always hoped that one day she would want to meet me, because I didn't ever want her to think I gave her away because she wasn't wanted or because there was something wrong with her. I recognized very much that it was my faults that I couldn't keep her and that I couldn't provide for her. And I never wanted her to think that there was any other reason except it was, it was me. And the reason I chose adoption was I wanted to be able to give her what I couldn't. I wanted her to be able to go to dance classes and gymnastics and things like that a 16-year-old couldn't afford, at least not any way that I could imagine at the time. And so I always hoped that she would want to meet me. And so because of that, I remember thinking that I hope if she meets me, she'll be proud of me. Because what if my worst case scenario is if she gets to turn 18 and I'm still suicidal and I wasted my life and I gave her away, and for what? I guess my thought of her future judgment of why'd you give me away for if you still were shitty? So everything I ever did after that in the back of my mind was to make her proud of me, to be better. And, I was in 10th grade when I had her. I was not doing well in school. And after that summer I had her, I pulled straight A's. I graduated early. I was like, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a master's degree. I did all of these things because I was like, I need to be better. And when and if she ever meets me, she's going to be like, oh, you made something of yourself. This wasn't for no reason. So that is really where it comes from, is everything I did was to make her proud of me. And the irony is when I did finally meet her, she was 18 years old. And I remember sitting there thinking about my whole life, if I was ready to see her, if I was embarrassed. And I was like, you know what? I'm looking at a teenager and she was so adorable and so great. But I was like, she's a teenager. And if she's not proud of me, I actually don't care. I realized that all this whole time, I was proud of myself. And while I did it all because I wanted that from her, I could have been okay. I could have understood if she was mad at me still, or if she wasn't happy about the situation. But I just think she made me who I am because I did so much my whole life for her and for that affirmation from her. And she's the reason I'm even here and the reason I didn't decide to just off myself at 15.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for her because I'm so grateful that you are still here. Such a blessing to so many people. You have touched so many lives. And although it's painful what you're going through and what you continue to go through, and you pull the gifts from it, you're really using your mess as your message, and it's so beautiful. So I just wanted you to know that. I know we just met, but I'm so grateful that you're here.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And to get into a different topic, but something that you are big on, money. Right now, that's where my mindset is because I'm trying to get out of medical debt with my health. And so around money mindset, what would you say is the most powerful mindset that has really shifted things for you? Or maybe just within that realm, what's made the biggest difference for you?
Easy answer. Faithful with the little things. It is this principle, and I'm not religious. I was raised in a heavily religious church, but there's a part in the Bible that says he's faithful with the little things will be made ruler over much. And my mentor who shared this, she gave this example of, if I gave you like 10 cents, could you give away a dime? It's like, yeah, who the fuck cares? Like 9 cents, 10 cents. What's the big deal? If I give you $1, could you give away 10 cents? You're like, sure, same thing. And she keep going up like this basic 10%. Like if I gave you $100, can you give away 10 of that? And it's like, yeah, of course I can. So many people will say like, I'll give away money once I'm rich, but you say, if I gave you $1 million, will you give away 100,000? Now you're like, maybe not so much. I don't want to give away $100,000. So we have these like ideas of what we'll do when we have more money, but we actually don't have a lot of generosity built in. But also the faithful with the little things part is that if all you're given is your salary is $2,500 a month, but you're complaining that it's not enough and you can't make your bills and you're pissed off, why do you deserve to have any more? And the example I usually use is this, like we all know kids. If you don't have kids, like think about a 6 or 7-year-old. Let's say they want an iPad for Christmas and you save all your money, you get them an iPad and you give it to them and they're like, ew, I didn't want this color. And then they just drop it and crack the screen. Would you get the kid a new iPad? Hell no. Like most people be like, you ungrateful. Like, I'm not going to give you another, like, look, I gave you a really nice iPad and you broke it and it's not the right color. Like, screw you. So why would the universe give you more money when you're complaining about what you have? Same thing with social media. So many people I worked with, they do business, social media stuff. And they're like, I only have 1,000 followers. Why would you deserve 100,000 followers if you're not even giving value or service to the 1,000 that you have or the 100 that you have? So the biggest thing I learned was I was not being faithful with the money that I had. I was spending money I didn't have. I was complaining about the money I did get. And that was so massive to like really, really be faithful with what I had. And as soon as I was faithful with what I had, I started getting more. And it's just a magical principle. But I think faithful with and this just became my mantra with money. I remember every time I was buying something, I'm like, is this being faithful? Is this being faithful? If I'm going, like, if you're broke and you're going to Starbucks, you're like, you can ask yourself, is this being faithful? And if it's not, then you could go, okay, it's not, put it back. For some people, Starbucks is not a big deal. Like that's not the enemy of all of our finances. But for some of you, might be talking to you, maybe right now it is. So the simple question of I being faithful with this that I've been given, that changed my life. So that is the one thing that I can tell you without any, like no hesitation to think of that answer.
That's awesome. Thank you.
I love that too, of being grateful for what you have, because as it goes up and up, you always have those things like, well, when I get that though, when I get that bonus though, yeah.
Or when I do this, when I get that, then I'll be happy. It's like you're chasing the more, and it's always going to be more.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mindset. Whew.
I love those. Thank you. All right. And last question, Danny J, what is one thing you wish you would have known sooner?
So many things. One thing I wish I would have known sooner. I guess I know that life doesn't go according to plan, but I think that one thing I wish I would have known sooner is that even though things might be different or look different or not go how you think it was, that they can still be so beautiful or better than you imagined. So I guess I would have probably released expectations of things and just been more open for the ride. I think I could have ended up with a lot less heartbreak if I didn't have so many expectations of how like life should be.
Oh, again with those shoulds. Stop shooting on yourself.
God, I'm so sad this is the end. Your life has been so full of ups and downs and lefts and rights, and just the way that you've pieced it into this beautiful message that's going to keep happening. Like, I'm going to hold tight to the Danny J ride and listen to all of the advice you have, because
oh my God, I love it.
it's so beautiful and you're so real and raw. And like, not only that, like you're so calm for what you've been through. Like you could just be like this very anxious, angry lady. And you're just like so funny and calm and sweet and down to earth. And so I'm so happy we got to meet you. And I'm so grateful for the time we had with you today.
Oh, thank you. I was going to say, you didn't see me during all of the years. So there were definitely times in 2017, not so calm, definitely times last year, not so calm, but it's a process. So meeting yourself where you're at, like, here's where I am at right now, but talk to me in 6 months, right after a big disaster, who knows where I'll be. But again, back to all of these tools, I know I could get back to here again. And we just have to trust ourselves in that. Like, we're going to go through some crazy shit, but we can always get back and we can come back better.
Yes, come back to that harmony within your body and your mind. I love it. Well, last but not least, we leave our listeners with a piece of gold. Danny, would you like to share yours with us?
Yeah. So, I feel like I should find a new quote, but the quote that I've always gone back to, that I used in the fitness days and still to this day, is Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And I think it's just this piece of our thoughts are so powerful and they really dictate everything. And so we got to be really, really careful and mindful of how we think and what we think about.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.